New study. Most American atheists oppose the death penalty. A new Pew Research Center survey shows that most adults in the United States support the death penalty for people convicted of murder. However, views about the death penalty differ by religion. Atheists and agnostics oppose this form of punishment at about the same rate as Americans overall support it. Atheists and agnostics represent less than 10% of the adult population, but their share has grown in recent years. Roughly 65% of atheists and 57% of agnostics either strongly or somewhat oppose the death penalty for people convicted of murder. Meanwhile, 60% of US adults favor the death penalty, including 75% of white evangelical Protestants and 73% of white non-evangelical Protestants. 39% of the people with any religious affiliation say that the threat of the death penalty deters serious crimes, compared to 26% of the unaffiliated.
Why is that? Why do you think there's a relationship between being an atheist and opposing the death penalty?
That's a very good question. I would think maybe it's because we don't have a doctrine that justifies punishment of death, like you see very obviously so in religious texts.
I just want to point out that all my questions are good questions. So, but yeah, Rivka?
I think that along with what Susanna's saying, there is maybe something to the worldview that there's certain things, that morals that are fixed for all time, and if you violate these things, you expect specific punishments. And if you look at then also maybe more of the looking at reason and having the statistics bear it out, because if that were the case, we wouldn't see levels of certain crimes that we do. I don't have it on hand because unfortunately I didn't do the research this week. But I don't think it bears that out. I don't think it acts as the deterrent that people think that it does, perhaps. But believing in something that you don't really have any proof for or evidence for is often maybe more acceptable to certain groups of people who believe in an ideology that you have to just take it on because you feel it, or you think that it might be true, or you want it to be true, that it must be true. But also I think the level of punishment itself, the fact that if someone's a sinner, then they have to be punished. And I don't also, from my perspective, believe the state should be in the business of killing people. I don't know that I think that that's the job of the state.
You know, it can be argued from a religious perspective that states do not have a right to take life away because only God has that right. You know, that could be a line of reasoning. However, I can see why. I don't think it's atheism that is making people more opposed to the death penalty. I think it's religion that is making people pro the death penalty. Like, I don't think there's anything within atheism that makes people like, oh yeah, my atheism is impacting my opposition to the death penalty. I just think it's the other way around, because it's really hard to be against the death penalty when your scripture includes the death penalty, right? Like, what are you saying? Are you saying that the Old Testament and the Quran are wrong, right? So, I mean, just by the virtue of being religious, you are claiming to trust a higher level of authority, and that level of authority is telling you that death penalty is a-okay. And I'm not saying it's a one-on-one relationship. I'm not saying like every religious person therefore is going to be the death penalty, pro the death penalty, but obviously it has some influence. It doesn't have a one-on-one, correlation. But I'm suspecting, my guess is that that's why it is. It's not the influence of atheism. It's just the influence of religion that is making more people more pro death penalty.
I think that's absolutely the way to look at it. I think that when you flip it a little bit like that, it makes more sense. But I also think that your point about only God can take or give life is part of the Catholic argument against the death penalty. And from what I understand, the one religious group that may have more of an association with being against the death penalty are Catholics. And there's been some very famous people, Sister Helen Prejean, and a lot of people may have seen a film about her. So that in and of itself is the exact argument that, that all life is sacred. God is the only one who can make these decisions. And so often that's exactly what they're saying as to why they're opposed to the death penalty.
They're actually people who are pro-life activists, who part of their pro-life activism, it's not just a conceptual thing. It's not a reproductive thing. It's actually a whole life developmental philosophy. And so for some people, their pro-life stance extends to opposing capital punishment. Sorry, Armin, what were you saying?
Absolutely.
No, I was just wondering if your microphone had an issue because I heard some echoes, but it seems okay actually. So never mind. Actually, you want to read this one? This is interesting.
Return to Monkey is saying, in India, we have this, quote, rarest of the rare cases criteria for the death penalty, but it's quite subjective. I'm not aware of this.
Yeah. Also, there are some people in the live chat that are saying that, oh, no, this is I'm an atheist and I am for the death penalty. Yeah, I mean, this is just saying it's most American atheists. It's not saying all American atheists. I wonder.
And I just want to point something out. It's people who actually self-identify as atheist and agnostic, which I think is interesting because the actual population of people who are just non-religious, unaffiliated, or none when they put religion on a census, and that's actually quite large. But these are explicitly self-identified individuals, and I thought that was important to highlight.
So you can see, when it comes to somewhat oppose and strongly oppose, the atheists, the people who self-identify as atheists, has by a huge margin bigger than everyone else, right? But yeah, it's very interesting because the people who are nothing in particular score the same almost as religious groups. Look. Wow, it's actually look, the people who oppose the death penalty, the people who are nothing in particular score exactly the same as people who are religiously affiliated. The difference is people who label themselves and consider themselves atheists. Those are the ones that are making the biggest difference, which is so interesting. I have no idea why. But it's so interesting that it's such a giant gap. And you can see the agnostic people who call themselves agnostics are also get high numbers. They're the second runner-up after atheists. But I wonder why that is.
It kind of makes me think that there is something about positively affirming an atheist identity that does influence this belief. It's not simply a lack of affiliation. I think Rivka made a very good point, or speculation, that it might have to do with a generalized value of a rational or empirical approach, because from a rational and empirical perspective, the death penalty is not supported as an effective way to deter crime.
Yes. Yeah, I think I was wrong then. This seems like maybe it's suggesting that I'm wrong. Could it be that the people who are people who okay, I'm just thinking out loud. This could be completely ridiculous, okay? But there is a chance that the people who label them go beyond not being religious, but label themselves as atheists, want to be as farthest away from biblical way of thinking as possible. So they're
an allergic reaction.
Whatever the Bible says, not that. Rivka.
Actually, I'm gonna I'm gonna change what I said before. I think what you said is exactly right on, but also it does have a relationship to being an atheist as well. And I think both of those can exist at the same time. That, and that's exactly what you see here. People who are more religious are more in favor. People who identify as religious, people who identify as atheists are not. But then when you look at the nothing in particular, so that sort of is almost your balance to know that this is what happens. They're right down the middle. Some do, some don't. My point is, what I'm saying is, I think it's both. I think it can be both.
Yes. By the way, like me, Susanna and Rivka, when we are making guesses based on these numbers, like we like you have to take it as guesses, right? Like we are just hypothesizing. Oh wow, I said that without any problem. But like these are not theories of us. Like we're guessing, and we identify it as guesswork, which is guesswork is completely fine. Educated guesses is completely fine. But you have to take it only as seriously as a hypothesis, not as a theory.
Hey guys, if you're a fan of Blasphemy and Sexy Callie, like me, then you need to be sure to subscribe to our newsletter, link in the description below. Because if you subscribe, we will send you a free copy of our Blasphemous Art ebook. And let me tell you, it is the tastiest blasphemy that you can find anywhere available today. And we are so generous with our blasphemy that we continue to send you more blasphemy every week. So make sure to subscribe, link in the description below.